Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, dear educators, honorable guests, and my fellow debaters. As the first speaker of the proposition team, our team strongly supports the motion that this House will prioritize preserving cultural traditions even at the cost of slowing social progress. First of all, to make this debate clear, let us define the key terms. Firstly, about the cultural tradition or the Rumah Adat system. This means the ancestral system of Kairan community in Aruna. It relies on collective land ownership, guidance from an elder council, and a mandatory one-year cultural apprenticeship for the youth. Secondly, the social progress means the proposed reforms from the national governments, which focus on individual land ownership, fast integration into urban jobs, and the freedom to leave the village immediately without elder approval. Secondly, thirdly, about the slowing social progress means that we are pausing or taking a slower path toward the Western style of urban development to make sure our community's identity is not destroyed. And for the status quo, ladies and gentlemen, right now the Kairan community is under heavy pressure from the national government and urban groups to change. They want to rush our youth into cities and break our land into individual places. This threatens to wipe out centuries of unique culture. Now, for the parameter, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that a community's identity is its backbone. Our parameter for this debate is simple. We are focusing on the long term survival and well being of the Kairan community in Aruna. We are not saying progress is evil, but we argue that progress must happen on the terms of the community, not forced upon them overnight. And for the team split, I, as the first speaker of the proposition team, will establish two arguments. First, explaining how preserving tradition protects community identity and prevents social isolation. And second, explaining how collective ownership protects the community from economic exploitation. And our second speaker will further strengthen our position by arguing about how the Elder Council ensures stable and peaceful governance, and why rushing into modern social changes causes more harm than good. Our second speaker will also provide a deeper rebuttal to the opposition team's arguments. And then our third speaker will then summarize and conclude the arguments that have been presented by the first and second speaker of the proposition team. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will jump into my arguments. My first argument is about how preserving tradition protects community identity and prevents social isolation. So, ladies and gentlemen, prioritizing the Rumah Adat system protects the identity of the Kairan youth and prevents them from becoming lost or isolated in mainstream society. When we force young people to quickly integrate into urban jobs and mainstream schools without a strong cultural foundation, they lose their roots. They enter a competitive urban world where they face discriminations and lack a support system. The one-year cultural apprenticeship gives them a clear sense of who they are, teaching them their language, history, and values. This makes them emotionally strong and resilient. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the info slide, the apprenticeship teaches youth traditional dispute resolution, forming rituals, and weaving. There and they, this ensures that even if they go to college later, they always have a home, a language, and a supportive clan to fall back on. Rushing them out completely destroys this safety net. Therefore, slowing down their departure to the city is a small price to pay for ensuring our youth grow up with a proud and strong identity instead of feeling isolated in urban areas. Now, let's move into my second argument. Is about how collective ownership protects the community from economic exploitation. So, ladies and gentlemen, keeping the traditional collective land ownership protects the Kairan community from losing their homes and wealth to rich countries. Social progress advocates one individual land in ownership so people can sell land. But in the real world, when poor indigenous individuals get the right to sell their land, big companies or rich urban buyers often buy them out for cheap prices. Once the land is sold individually, the clan loses its territory forever. Collective ownership means no single person can get tricked into selling the community's future. Ladies and gentlemen, the info slide states that under Rumah Adat, ancestral land is owned collectively by clans and cannot be sold individually. This keeps the land safe within the community generation after generation. So, while individual land rights look like social progress, on paper, it actually leaves individuals weak against big corporations. Preserving the tradition of collective land keeps the community safe and undivided. Dear educators, honorable guests, and my fellow debaters, social progress is meaningless if it destroys the very people it is supposed to help. By keeping our land together and grounding our youth in our rich history, we ensure the Kairan community survives. For these reasons, ladies and gentlemen, as the proposition team, we are proud to propose the motion that this House will prioritize preserving cultural traditions even at the cost of slowing social progress. That's all from me. Thank you, and I'm back to my boss. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.